Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons, and this is the EarthWorks podcast. And I am very excited to have a friend of mine from back in Rutgers days, actually, Mr. Travis Hogan, who's the sports field manager for the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, Missouri. And Travis, thank you very much. I know you are a very busy man right now. You just told me you're about to start practice training, and you've got who do you have coming in? Chesney's coming in this week. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, Kenny Chesney this weekend. And then at the end of July, we have George Strait, Chris Stapleton right in the middle of training camp.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys do this sometimes. You know, it's just nuts. I mean, you've got all sorts of stuff. I mean, I think I saw somewhere that you had, all sorts of people coming in and, just beating the daylights out of your field, aren't you?
Yeah, we had Monster Jam a couple weeks ago.
Oh, don't forget Monster Jam. Gotta get that in there.
Can't forget Monster Jam. It came in, then now Kenny, then George Strait, Chris Stapleton. And the first practice for training camp is July 23rd. So
you have other sporting events around all that stuff right now? Is there anything else going on athletically?
Well, we had practice, OTAs start mid-April.
Yeah.
They go till mid-June. So you've got practice 3 to 4 days a week in that stretch at the practice facility. So then once mandatory mini camp's over, we have about 8 weeks to get practice fields ready from the end of OTAs until they come back from training camp. And then obviously that has to last, 20 weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Tell me about Monster Jam. I'm sure everybody in the turf industry is thrilled and excited and wants to know about Monster Jam, but they're bringing in soil, aren't they? Are they like, what the hell goes on for you for Monster Jam?
We cover, like for us, our biggest concern is what we've seen with them is they use this like thin plastic sheeting. It's probably maybe a 1/4 inch plastic sheets that are 6 feet by 20 feet, something like that.
Yeah.
And so they'll cover the whole field. First, we'll cover all sprinkler heads and all valves with plywood. And then they put down like a geo fabric over top of everything. And then they bring in their plastic sheeting and then about 6 inches of dirt over the whole field.
Wow.
So and then there they start building their jumps. And, one year we had a bus buried in the middle of the field.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah, a big old pile of dirt. There was a bus in it. So they haul in dirt, truckload after truckload after truckload. And
so they're bringing in trucks through the stadium into your field and pounding it with tons and tons of. Any idea how much soil is being brought in for a Monster game?
It's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. I can't even imagine. How long does it take to get them set up for Monster Jam?
It probably takes them about 3 full days to get set up.
So your field's under all this crap for better part of a week?
Yeah, about 6 days usually.
Yeah. And how long does it take for them to clear it out? And how good a job do they do when they actually do clear out all that dirt?
It's actually pretty impressive how well they clear everything out. They can be out of here in 24 to 48 hours. They're completely gone.
So what's the field look like when they're done?
Death warmed over.
What do? What's your first thing after you look at this and say, why do we do this again? What's the first thing you got to do to get this thing back?
The interesting part for me is more to see how much grass will come back.
Yeah.
And like if we go in wet to something like that, if we get rain right before they cover it, usually you rot over that 6-day span. If you go in dry, you actually have a pretty good chance of coming back out of it, in all honesty. And part of that depends on where we are from the year before. Are we mostly ryegrass? A lot of times it will kill the rye, and then all of a sudden you'll see Bermuda start to come back underneath. I mean, we would look at phrase mowing it and trying to grow it back in. It's just usually once our event season starts, we have most of our grass events before the grass killing events.
Right. Is that is that what it says on the wall? The grass killing events
that's
starts now.
Yeah. in mine, I have it separated out of grass events and grass killing events.
Right, exactly. All the guys know this is grass killing event season, so it's pretty. Are the concerts worse than the Monster Jam? What's the worst grass killing event you got? And I don't really want to start this conversation on such a negative, but it's entertaining.
No, I mean, look, it's just part of what stadium life is. I mean, you're going to have events. You're going to have events to make money, right? I don't blame them. I mean, if I own this joint, I'd be trying to make money too, other than just football games. So it's one. I would say Monster Jam's probably the worst, just because when you have that heavy of equipment, and sometimes they do a really good job of being careful getting out of here. But you'll have let's say you have a band in one of those plastic sheets. Then as they're scraping dirt off, it might catch and it'll dig a little bit, and you'll have 2 or 3 holes in the field after they're done. Nothing major, just stuff that pops through the grass, and you got to fix down the road.
What's the time frame between Monster Jam and the next big concert? I mean, do you have a lot of time to recover between your grass killing events, or are they really butted up against each other?
Yeah, like this is 2 weeks apart. So
wow,
Monster Jam was 2 weeks ago, and Kenny's this weekend, and then we have 4 weeks, and we have George Strait, Chris Stapleton.
So how fast is the setup for a concert? Like Stapleton comes in on what day and then performs?
So like for Kenny this week, the floor went down on Monday, and then they started building stage on Tuesday, and they'll build all the way through today. Chairs will probably go out, I would say probably tomorrow, and then they'll pretty much be ready for a show. Once production gets put up tomorrow, and usually they're not doing a whole lot on Saturday. They're trying to just make sure sound checks and stuff like that.
Yeah. Is there only one show? They typically only do one show.
Yeah, it just depends on who it is, and
right.
How fast like if something sells out and they have another date reserved, then you might have 2 days. It just depends on.
But typically it's a 1-day event, but it takes a week for all the setup. And how fast do you get back from an event like that, from a concert series? How quick is the floor taken up?
It depends on the scenario, but most of the time, everything's out of here within 24 to 36 hours max, but usually within 24 hours, everything can be up.
And what's the drawback of the concert flooring? I mean, you'd mentioned, I hadn't even thought about this. If you go into this thing wet, I would assume the same problem if you're going into putting the floor down when you're after a rain or, a water event like that. Same issue?
Well, it depends on you have, drivable floor and you have pedestrian floor.
Yeah.
So the pedestrian floor, usually, let's say that this concert's in season, then you're going to have X amount of drivable, depending on how big the stage is and how much room they need in front of the stage. That averages out usually around 36 to 40,000 square feet. So not quite 50% of the field is affected. You try to limit that to as little of the playing surface as possible. You're trying to put drivable down sidelines or, bench areas or whatever, something that's off the playing surface. I would say playing surface square footage would probably be 25 to 30,000 square feet that's actually affected on the playing surface. So the drivable is solid both sides. So it won't necessarily kill the grass, but you pretty much have to be prepared to sod that area, because the last thing you want to do is think that you can get it back, and
right.
happens you can't, right? So
fighting it,
yeah. So usually, I get a CAD drawing, a month before a show, kind of show me what they're going to impact, and then I get with Chad Price on how many square feet I need. We generally reserve, a full field up to a field and a half early in the season, just to make sure that we have it ready to go.
Chad is from Carolina Green. If for those of you who don't know Chad, he's actually been on our podcast and is a friend of ours as well. But so Chad basically has been growing grass for you for a while, right? So
Yeah, we started using Chad in 2014, I think.
so you basically contract with Chad. You need to over the season you're going to need so much sod to fix these kind of these turf killing events, right?
Yeah, so like a few years ago, we had 2 concerts in season.
Yeah.
So, when we start talking about the event schedule in March,
Right.
and our people here do a really good job of keeping us informed of, hey, here's what we're looking at for the season. They give us plenty of time to, get with Chad and say, okay, we're going to need X amount of grass reserved. Usually I look at, are we going to go a full field? There's going to be partial fields. Are we going to bring something back from the year before? One year, we brought back the stadium field. Most of it came back. We sprigged sidelines, grew that in, had that for the summer, and then replace whatever we need to replace after each show. So it just kind of depends on. So like this show we have right now, we're 100% drivable. We already had Monster Jam.
Yeah.
And so we just put down drivable over the whole thing. It makes it a whole lot faster for the concert to actually get in and get out, because instead of hauling things down the tunnel, they just drive their trucks straight down the tunnel, straight onto the field, unload trucks, build what they need to build. And then when they break down, they're just loading the semis instead of trying to haul everything out with forklifts.
Isn't the drivable though more damaging to the turf?
Yeah.
But you're already there and you've already kind of gone through this. So what the heck, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, with Monster Jam 2 weeks ago, I mean, what are we going to do? Try to save 5,000 square feet? I mean, you're
exactly. What's the difference?
Going to take it out, and it needs to come out and be laser graded and get set up for the season to make sure that the playing surface is as smooth as possible.
So, did you go to Monster Jam?
No.
Will you go to Chesney?
No, I'm actually going to the lake this weekend to just try to turn my brain off for a couple days and mentally prepare for training camp being so close.
And when's training camp start?
July 23rd is the first practice.
So you're right up against it right now.
Yeah, and we're 1 week in to trying to get sprigs established. So
yeah,
they're starting to root, and I'm feel comfortable enough to. I was here all weekend, just making sure water's set right, make sure
the important things.
Is.
Well, let me ask about you. Born and raised Missouri. I happen to know from firsthand experience, you did end up going to Rutgers to get a turf degree. But where did you get started in all this? How did you get into turf?
So I grew up playing golf. Like anyone that
right.
Anyone that plays golf growing up, you're gonna play on the PGA Tour
someday.
And I was a decent player, but I was a horrible putter. And so once I figured out that part was really important.
Yeah, that's really important. I heard. Yeah, I saw that.
I started working in the pro shop thinking I wanted to be a club pro, and absolutely hated it. I just couldn't handle being inside,
Didn't like folding shirts all day?
Well, I didn't mind. Like, I didn't care what work I did. I just couldn't stand being inside. I wanted to be outside.
Yeah.
So,
classic turf guy.
Yeah, I went to golf course maintenance, and the golf course, Ironton, Missouri, there's not a whole lot of.
No, probably not.
A lot of 9-hole tracks around, and they just built a place called Eagle Lake. Now it's called Crown Point. It's in Farmington, which is about 25 miles from my hometown. But it was, it was probably the best golf course in a 50-mile radius of our house. And so, of course, I wanted to work there. So, started in the pro shop there. Did that for 1 year, and then went to golf course maintenance the next year. And I didn't know I didn't know what the numbers on the bag meant. I just
most people don't. That's okay.
Yeah, I started out as your normal golf course maintenance newbie of grab a weed eater and a can of gas and start on one and
work your way around. Yeah.
So,
but you knew golf, so at least you knew there was 18 holes in which direction to go, and that's a big start. I think that's the first requirement of any superintendent anymore is that have you ever played this game, or do you know what a golf club looks like? Yeah,
it's I got really good at weed eating, really good at it.
Right. That's important skill, man. It's an important
Yeah.
skill. So I assume that going from the pro shop and having some golf experience, the maintenance team probably was more than thrilled to be able to say, yeah, come on down. What year is this? Do you remember what year are we talking about?
Probably 1995.
All right. So it was still in the peak of golf, and there was probably still a lot of people. Labor wasn't what it is now. So
no, I mean, we had, you could find labor for sure. I think I started at I think I made $425 in
wow.
Up at the pro shop, and I think I got bumped to like $450 to go to golf course maintenance.
Congratulations. So. That's good. Do you remember your first day on maintenance? Do you remember that first day and how you felt and what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what to expect.
Right.
You walk in the shop. Sometime on a sidebar, I'll tell you what the first words I ever heard in a golf course maintenance.
Yeah, you can say almost anything here, but let's have at least some discretion.
Yeah, this one might cross the line.
Yeah, that's fine. I get it. And this was coming from the superintendent?
No, it was just coming from a couple of employees that actually were like uncle and a nephew, but I didn't know that.
Oh, so great. And they're yelling at each other.
Yeah, like a deer in the headlights. I'm like, holy cow, what have I got myself
What am I doing here?
Yeah. So, I was there for whatever, 10 minutes or so, and they're like, hey, here's your cart. Here's a weed eater. Here's a can of gas.
Go at it.
And head to number one. But the funniest part is I'm trimming around trees. And so, my dad growing up would just take it to the nubs around trees so he didn't have to. So that's all
you knew.
Yeah. So another guy on the cruise driving down the cart path after I've already gone through about 15, 20 trees probably. And, you just see dust flying, and he stops his cart and, his eyes are about to bug out of his head. And he's like, hey man, you're just supposed to make that the same height as everything else.
Yeah, you're not supposed to take it out completely.
Yeah, I mean, dust flying. I look like a pigpen,
Oh, that's funny. That's I mean, and you got no instruction, right? Nobody said a thing. Here's the weed.
Luckily, I only took out like 15. The grass around 15 trees.
That's not bad. Hey,
on the whole golf course.
The nice thing about grass, it grows back.
Sometimes I'm not sure some of that did.
Yeah, as long as you didn't kill the tree. I mean, that's probably okay. You could.
I didn't ring the tree. I did not ring the tree.
How long were you there?
I was there for a couple of years, and then a buddy of mine that I worked with there, he ended up getting an assistant job at Black Wolf Run. And so he probably took that job maybe in 96. And so they had the Women's US Open in 98. And so he called me. I was actually bouncing around. I went to Illinois to play little college golf for a couple different stints, and then I moved to Florida for a little while. I was going to play golf down there, and the school I was going to go to didn't have any out-of-state tuition, like scholarship. So I'm not paying triple. Back then you had a lot of out-of-state was way more expensive. So I just got a job at a golf course and was just
in Florida.
Yeah, I was 22 and just, hey, I'll work down here. And so my buddy called and said, hey, each assistant gets to pick an intern for Women's Open. Do you want to do it? And I was like, hell yeah. I'm in. When you want me to show up, So that's actually when I decided I was going to go into turf. I actually applied to Rutgers from Wisconsin. And so
is that where you were when you came to Rutgers? You were in Wisconsin?
Well, what's funny is I worked the Women's Open, and then at the end of the season, it was like probably a couple weeks before Thanksgiving, another friend of mine, his first job at a college somehow ended up in Ironton, Missouri. And he had moved to Kansas City as the Jackson County extension agent for University of Missouri.
Oh, look at that. I did that.
And so he calls me out of the blue, and he's like, hey, I just talked to the head groundskeeper for the Chiefs, and they're looking for somebody to finish the season. Would you want to do it? And it's like, I don't know, 10 days before Thanksgiving, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not a whole lot going on in Wisconsin then. It's
Right. Exactly. Snow.
It's pretty chilly at that point.
Yeah.
So,
Snow. Everybody's gone. Yeah. Nothing to do.
So there were only like 2 interns left, me and another kid. So I'm like, yeah, man, I'd do it. And so he said, well, you need to call this guy at 8 a.m. on the dot on Monday. And I'm like, okay. So he gives me the number. I go back to the shop at 8. I call Andre. Andre Bruce was the head guy here then. And he's like, we have a game this weekend. I need you here this Friday. And
really?
so,
That's...
yeah, so I was like, okay, let me talk to the superintendent and just at least tell him like what's going on. I don't,
give him some heads up. Yeah.
I usually like to put it 2 weeks in, and this is the week of Thanksgiving. And so I go to the superintendent and just said, hey, I have this opportunity. I kind of like to check out the sports turf side. I'd love to turn it 2 weeks in. And if you guys are going to be, if you're going to be dead set on it, then I'll just tell them I can't be there for 2 more weeks. And they're like, no, it's the week of Thanksgiving. Get the hell out of here.
We got nothing going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I left the golf course at like 10, went to the intern house, packed up all my crap, and ended up having car trouble at like, I don't know, 10 p.m. in Chicago.
Oh, great. You're kidding.
Then I actually like turned around and went like 5 or 10 miles back to get on the outskirts of Chicago.
Yeah.
Call my dad. We kind of walked through it. And then I pulled in my parents' driveway around 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning and hung out through Thanksgiving night and rolled into Kansas City. Rolled into Kansas City about 3 a.m. and was at the stadium at 8 on Friday.
Wow. How far is home from the stadium?
308 miles. So
all right, to be exact.
4.5. Yeah, 4.5. Yeah, I checked it once.
I see that.
more to see when I was younger, like how fast I made it.
Yeah. So you had no experience in sports turf when you take this you take this call and go and head down to Kansas City.
No, yeah, nothing.
Big difference, big surprise.
Well, obviously I never painted anything.
Yeah.
Right. I never painted anything. I didn't know what the dimensions of a field were. I didn't, you don't know any of that stuff. You just show up, say, what do you want to do?
Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Yeah.
So
they didn't give you the paint machine the first day, did they?
No. I was
like the weed whacker.
Yeah, I was just holding the board. We were painting lines. That's back in the day where we actually used like 20-foot boards to paint all the lines. It took like 4 to 8 hours to paint lines. Yeah.
A little bit different today, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you've been there since then. I didn't realize that.
No.
You went across the street for a while, right? Keep going. You tell me the story. I'm making things up.
Yeah. So I came here, finished that season, and then went to Rutgers. That was my first year at Rutgers. Then, at that point at Rutgers, all the guys were really golf guys.
Yeah.
And so I had talked to them, just said, look, I don't really feel like 2 months is enough time to really know whether I want to do sports or golf or what. And they were completely cool with allowing me to come back here. So I came back here for my internship that year and worked football and baseball. And then when I graduated from Rutgers in 2000, I got hired full-time here. But in the meantime, the same buddy that was here moved to California and took over as the director of turf grass services for the Northern California Golf Association.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, so I was here full time for a couple of years. It was late 2002, and he called me out of the blue and was like, "Hey, I had to fire." The NCGA has a big intern program. They could take like 5 interns every couple of years and put them at high end places. And he calls me out of the blue and he's like, "Hey, I had to fire the intern at Pebble Beach today, and I'm looking for someone as a replacement. Like, would you be interested?"
At Pebble Beach?
Yeah, and I'm like,
I've heard of this place. Where is this again? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, no way, man. I don't want to be like, some internships are like,
Nuts.
I mean, it's crazy. So
Yeah.
I was full time here. I was actually making pretty good money. I had, retirement stuff set up, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. So the next morning I wake up and I'm like, it's freaking Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach, exactly. You don't say no to Pebble Beach.
Well, I was also thinking, like, if I stay here for 20 years, I'm never going to get any management experience. I'm never going to be prepared to ever take over. I'm just going to be here for the rest of my career. And so
painting lines.
I started thinking about it. I'm just like, well, so I call him back. I'm like, can I even afford to live out there?
No, is the answer to that question.
Yeah. I'm like, the funny thing is, I asked him, like, what am I going to be making? And it was $10.0958 an hour.
Wow. To be specific. Yeah.
I never had somebody tell me like 10.095, like, you know what I mean? I never.
What does that even mean? I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
Can you put that in your pocket?
Yeah. But housing, I would live in like an intern house for
which is above a garage somewhere, right? Or something like that.
It was actually not a bad house. It's actually not even there anymore. It got knocked down. But it was actually not too bad. It was at the end of.
So you packed up and moved to Pebble.
Yeah. He said, send me a resume. So I went home at lunch and sent a resume. He called me back that evening and said, the superintendent, which actually was from St. Louis, Tom Hogan was his name.
Yeah, I know Tom.
Yeah, he was like, from St. Louis, hey, we got a Missouri kid. Because I asked him later on, like, what was it like? Why'd you pick me to come out here? He's like, we like all the Midwest boys. We know that you guys are coming from.
Got hard
we know
work.
We know you're coming from places that are difficult to grow grass, and you're not gonna be upset if we tell you you're working a 10-hour day or 12-hour day because you're used to it.
Yeah, work ethic.
So, my buddy says, I need you here December 22nd, and I'm like,
really? Just happens to be during a holiday stretch.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
Can I go home the next day for the holiday?
I said, well, can I just show up like the 26th? And he's like, man, I really need to get you started because, we're going to be getting ready for the AT&T and all that. So I'm like, all right. So I show up December 22nd, I worked at Del Monte for 6 weeks. So I worked the 23rd and a half day of the 24th. And then I just sat in the intern house for the 24th and 25th, and then went back to work.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. So at that point, I was at Pebble Beach, yeah,
exactly. I mean, you're not in a bad part of the world.
Yeah. It's not like you're crying about it. I mean,
you're not in St. Louis.
They want to spend Christmas in Pebble Beach, so
yeah, exactly. Not many people can say they've spent Christmas at Pebble Beach. So
So
how long were you there?
I was there. I was an intern for 9 months, and then I took the assistant job at Spyglass.
Working for who there?
Chris Dahlhammer.
Oh, you worked for Chris when he was Spyglass. It's not a bad little resume you're starting to build here. That's not bad.
What's funny about him is I remember one day I was like he came over to Pebble one day for something, and I hadn't. So when you set it up, originally they were going to have me work at Del Monte for 6 weeks and then send me to Pebble, and I was going to be at Pebble for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And so I told my buddy, his name is Mike McCullough. I told him, I said, hey man, really, I wouldn't mind splitting this up where we go like, maybe like 7 months at Pebble, 7 months at Spy, 7 months at Spanish Bay, so that if a job comes open, I will have actually worked for the superintendent. I know them, they know me.
Yeah.
Not like hearsay of Tom saying, oh, Travis is good or whatever. I don't really want it to go that way. I'd rather, work for them. So I was at Pebble, and Chris comes in one day, and he was visiting for something, and I was getting ready to leave. It's like 5. We go in at 5, and I'm leaving at like maybe, I don't know, 2 o'clock or something. I'm going out the door, and he's like, where the hell are you going?
Where are you going? Yes, I can hear him say that. Actually,
I'm not even working for him yet,
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm like, well, I'm going home. He goes, what is this, half days? And so I'm just thinking at the time, man, Spyglass is going to be, it sounds like it's going to be a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
So went over there and was an intern for, I don't know, a couple months, and then assistant job came open and I took that.
No, that's funny. So what's the rest of the story? So how long were you out there?
I was there for 2.5 years, and then came back to Missouri as a superintendent in Sullivan, Missouri, Sullivan Country Club for a couple of years. Then I moved to Branson. And then when the golf market crashed in 08, 09, all hell broke loose. And so there was a job open here in 2010, and I knew football wasn't going to go anywhere. So
that's probably true, right?
Yeah. So I came back here in 2010 and then took over in 2016.
Oh, wow. So let's talk about this. The big difference between managing the sports complex and managing a golf course. I mean, a lot of superintendents have that thought that they can get into sports turf pretty easily, but is that really true?
Obviously the agronomy is the agronomy, right?
Yeah.
You're growing plants and you're trying to do obviously what's best for the plant. The biggest difference in sports versus golf is the golf course is, everything is more obviously long-term growth.
Yeah.
1. 2, if you're managing greens, you're not going to be lighting greens up like a Christmas tree because you're concerned about disease. Obviously your worst diseases are generally high in.
Yeah.
So, and you're worried about green speeds. Obviously the surfaces are pretty similar, and you're trying to keep the field as smooth as a green. You're trying to make sure that it's a good, smooth playing surface. The biggest differences are the traffic in the NFL is 18.5 feet wide.
Right.
The hashes are 18.5 feet. So I've told superintendents this. The closest analogy that I can come up with of how you would compare, your golf course to the NFL traffic is have 3 full course shotguns 3 Mondays in a row. Put your par 3 tees 18.5 feet apart and put them back in the exact same spot every Monday.
Wow. Great analogy.
That's the closest I can come up with what it would be like. Because obviously the first week, a game, when you have a game, you're like, that's not too bad. And then 2 in 14 days, and 3,
then October rolls around and November rolls around, and you're like,
I would say the hardest thing in it is more, we don't have frost delays, we don't have rain delays, and in that I can't put up ropes and stakes. I can't be like, hey, the game last week was played really from this 40 to this 20. They beat it up pretty good. Can we stay off that into the field?
Right.
And
can you move? Can you just play on this half? Play half court today, will you?
Yeah. When you get to the 50, just turn and go back the other way.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be easy, right?
Yeah.
Just do a little U-turn.
Yeah, you really have zero control. I mean, if kickoffs at noon,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way that it goes. So, those are the things that are probably the most difficult, along with trying to force grass to grow in December and January.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because that's got to be a big challenge. But what's the difference politically between golf and sports turf? I mean, you're at a pretty high end, and obviously, you're at a unique facility compared to somebody that might be at a municipality or something. But what's the difference day to day, from a political standpoint, or from a having to deal with clientele kind of standpoint?
I think it depends on what kind of golf course you're at, and
you've been at a pretty good golf course environment in your career.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as a superintendent, obviously the board and the membership have a whole lot to do with how fun your job is. Here at every golf course, expectations are going to be high, whether it's a beer budget or whether it's a champagne budget. They all have high expectations. They all want the golf course to be good. I think the biggest kicker politically would be, you don't always get all the tools you want at the golf course, depending on membership and what their plans are with money that year or whatever. Here, they give us the tools to do our job. And so that's one that is probably the biggest difference politically. If I really need something and I can justify it, then most of the time they're gonna give it to me.
What's your reporting structure at the stadium? I mean, who do you report to?
So I report to the director of stadium ops, and then also the vice president of stadium operations.
And who do they report to? I mean, where's the money flow come through and that kind of thing? Do they make the decisions, or are
they report to the president?
Okay. So does everything go up all the way to when you have a request for some kind of equipment, can you make a decision, or can your immediate supervisor make a decision and give you that support, or is it a process?
That's a process that goes all the way up the chain. Depending on what the amount of money is, it may go all the way to the owner. Obviously, I don't know everything going on. I don't know all the plans for what needs to be done in the stadium. I don't know that we need to replace concrete, or I don't know that there's, I don't know what the costs are. So, for me, and some things they'll say, is this an emergency? Or is it something we can put in capital for next year? Or, we just have a discussion about it and then go from there.
It's run more like a business than, say, the golf course. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair statement.
All right. Because some golf courses, depending on, the ownership or in the structure, it can be pretty loose and kind of strange at times.
I think the other one, it would be, at the golf course, you have 10 members that want greens super fast.
Right, exactly.
You have 50 that complain that they're too fast. And then you have on the board, you're trying to discuss like what the best thing to do for the golf course is. But you have somebody on the board that all they care about is the flowers. When are you putting the flowers in?
Right, exactly.
So, we don't have that here.
You don't have any of the players asking for flowers along the sidelines?
We're all about like, what do we need to do for football?
Yeah.
And how do we make all of our fields? I mean, we have 6 fields that we manage. So we have the stadium field, then we have 3 practice fields here, plus the indoor, which is synthetic. And then we have 2 more fields we manage from April through October, 65 miles north of here. We have training camp. That's
your training camp. Is that where you're going to be going soon?
Yeah.
You're going up there. So let's talk about it. So you've got all this, you're overseeing all of that stuff. You've got practice facilities, and then you have to manage the training facility 16 miles away.
Yep.
Is that your facility, or is that a college? Where are you going?
It's at a college, Missouri Western State University.
Okay, you did tell me that. Yeah. So how much input do you have in that?
They're ours from April to October.
And so you and your team are up there managing that, getting it ready for training camps.
Yep.
So how do you work between the two on something like that? You got a crew that works specifically up there for better part of the year?
I have one. So how I handle it is, we only have me, 4 full-time guys and 4 part-time guys.
Wow, that's not much, is it? For that,
you can't start pulling too many people from here, right? Especially when you have practice going all the way through part of June. So I have one guy that I basically start sending up there in April to eyeball it. We'll take a trip up and both look at it and kind of come up with a plan of attack of here's where we are. How are we going to get, here by a certain date? The hardest part is being 65 miles north of Kansas City. You never know when it's going to warm up.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people probably don't know that, because Kansas City is a pretty unique environment, but 60 miles north can be radically different, right?
It's way different. I mean, you get the first 40 miles of the drive and it'll look very similar to Kansas City. So like when trees start budding out in Kansas City, trees will be budding for the first 30 to 40 miles. And then all of a sudden you'll get to Platte City and there's not a leaf on a tree.
There's nothing. It's winter. Nothing. You got snow on the ground.
It's still winter. You're like, holy cow, it's so much different up here. So it's usually about 2 weeks behind here.
When do you get up there? What time of year do you get up there?
We'll start going to put eyes on it in April usually.
Now, is anybody involved from the school up there with you, or do you get to use some of their crew, or is it all you guys? You own
No,
it.
it's us. It's us.
So 100% you guys. So you're taking care of everything.
So sometimes we'll send two up, to how we usually handle it is you don't really know what you're gonna, get. We're not,
Yeah.
You're trying not to spend a ton of money because you're trying to manage the fields, obviously, as financially responsible as you possibly can. So, we're not really throwing pre-emerge and any of that up there.
Yeah.
One, we don't know if we're gonna have to sprig or if we're gonna have any winter kill or whatever. So usually whenever we show up, it looks like a pasture. And then we do what we call a poor man phrase mow, where
Right.
we take like a 48-inch stander and set it at an inch and just mow the whole field at
Just
1
rip
inch.
it up a bit. Yeah.
Basically try to just knock it down. We take a couple sucker tractors up or a sweeper and just clean it up, or a blower, blow it off. And then once we get it where it's fairly smooth, then we come behind that and we phrase mow it.
Gotcha.
So, we'll spend a full day, sometimes a day and a half, phrase mowing up there, and then we start the grow-in process.
And that's all warm season grass up there?
Yeah.
And I assume it's a little slower to kind of come around, being it's in a different environment.
Yeah, it's been a really, really interesting science project.
I bet.
Well, we've seen some crazy things up there.
Yeah.
There's been years that we lost grass over the winter from compaction from the year before. So then you come behind that and you're like, okay, we're going to solve that and we're going to aerify after training camp, right? So do that, and then we don't get any moisture up there through the winter, and next thing you know, you die because of desiccation.
It's all dead. Yeah.
So it's been fun to try to figure it out, because they don't really teach. That's not things they teach in school. They don't teach you how to take care of Bermuda grass and St. Joe,
especially at Rutgers. Yeah, especially at Rutgers University. Doesn't talk a whole lot. I don't know if anybody talked about Bermuda grass, did they?
Not a whole lot.
I wouldn't think so.
So, that's been a really fun challenge of, like, we've got it narrowed down to where this year we only lost like 8,000 square feet on a sideline. So,
how many square feet are we talking about up at that facility? I mean,
we've got about 190,000.
Oh, do you? So that's a pretty good sized facility. So there's a number of fields, obviously.
2 fields, yeah, plus
okay. Then the sidelines. How many fields do you now? Your practice facility at home, is that real close to the stadium, right next to the stadium? I don't even know. I've not been there yet.
Yeah, it's probably, I don't know, a quarter mile.
Okay, so you can. It's how many fields are you talking about there?
Three natural grass fields. We added another one last year.
And that's also where the indoor facility is?
Yeah.
Is that a relatively new complex?
No.
That's an older complex. So
yeah,
my understanding, and I did a little homework, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Arrowhead was built in 72.
Yep.
All right. So it's not the newest of all the stadiums out there. How old is the practice facility?
It was built in 90.
Okay, so that's not in modern standards. I mean, I talked with your friend Tony Leonard. He's got, the NovaCare Center is fairly new, and that's pretty common now in NFL. But your facility has been around for a bit. Is that problematic?
We're starting to get to that point where we have to start thinking about, rebuilding fields similar to greens, where, you're going to look at rebuilding greens every 30 years ish.
Maybe even sooner.
Yeah. So we're 32 years old. So it used to be one practice field back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1990, they built this whole practice facility, and it was 2 fields. And then like the indoor originally was only like 70 yards. And then over time, they made the indoor 100 yards, and then they added a weight room on, and they added, offices down there. So it's kind of been a work in progress of getting it is today. And then we added a field last year.
So what's the construction of that practice facility close to home?
It's all USG. Yeah, it's all USG.
It is all. So back then they built it as USG. Is the Arrowhead Stadium field all USG spec?
Yep.
It's all sand. So you're working off of all that. And what's the grass type in the practice facility at those fields?
Everything we have is Northbridge Bermuda.
Oh, you're wall to wall Northbridge. Okay.
Every field we have is Northbridge.
You were one of the earliest adapters to Northbridge. Is that what Chad told me?
Yeah, so we switched to Northbridge when it first came out. It came out, I think, in 12.
Yeah.
And I basically got on the InTap and just was looking around. What we can find, what's out there. So I saw that Northbridge was one of the top from a cold tolerance, but also the intriguing part was more that Northbridge had a better rating for dormant traffic, which, for us at the time, we didn't have a heated stadium field yet. You really are trying to find something that can take dormant traffic as well, especially, practice field wise, you're practicing on dormant grass from probably at least the 1st of November all the way through the rest of the season.
Yeah. So that I was just going to ask you, that's when you start to go dormant. It's 1st of November.
Depends on when the first frost is.
Yeah. Are you overseeding?
Yeah, we overseed light at the practice facility. We overseed heavier in the stadium.
Yeah.
But now with the heat system, we can do some crazy things. I mean, I've had this field full 100% Bermuda still on like October 20th.
Oh, really? Yeah. I watch your games often because I know you obviously and the field, and you always look fantastic. You look like you are well into the season before you're really struggling with dormancy. But it's always. When did you put the heating system in?
It went in 2015.
Big expectations when that happened on your part, or on their part, I should say, more likely.
I think it was just more. You're trying to get with the times, and you don't really know. Yeah. You don't know what to expect the first year. Obviously, in your head, you think you can do all these crazy things.
Yeah, I would think so, right?
But you just don't know. There's a lot of learning curve that comes with that. Really, the first time that we ever experienced a super cold game, I called Alan Johnson up in Green Bay and said, "Hey, man,
how do you do this?"
I don't know where to set this, because you know that if you set it too warm, the field will play super soft.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, that's interesting. So you got to manage all that stuff too.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out kind of where to set it and what we do, and everybody's different of how their field reacts to what they're doing.
Yeah,
so for us, if let's say that it's going to be cold, we're trying to keep Bermuda moving a little bit. We'll crank the heat to 75 through the week.
Really?
Yeah. And then obviously the top isn't 75, but
right.
Even where the root zone is 75, 4.5 inches down would be 75 degrees.
And that doesn't create a soft playing surface?
Well, so then as we get into the weekend, depending on what the weather is, sometimes I'll change it, from 75 to 60 over, like from Friday to Saturday.
To firm it up?
Yeah, just to let it cool a little bit in that top inch where they're going to play, and let that cool. But really, most of the time, we leave the heat running wherever we have it up until game day morning at like 6 a.m. We turn it down like 15 degrees on game day morning. And just
how do you learn that shit? I mean, is there a book on how to, what temperature to keep a field?
It's all just trial and error. You're trying to find. It's like anything, right? If you're managing greens, you're looking at what's the basement and what's the ceiling. Like,
yeah, exactly.
What can I do and what can I not do? You find that height that you're like, I can't go any lower than that, right? Or you find that you can't really go above certain heights, or you can't go above certain amounts of growth regulator or whatever you're using. You have to find the basement and the ceiling. Like we do a lot of testing, and there's things that, hey, look, there's things that I've got my ass handed to me on, and there's also things that have come out really well. But, if you're not trying, then
you never make it.
One year I got Pythium, December like 20th.
Oops, maybe that's a little too high today.
we took the tarps off, and all the way down, like our shaded sideline that holds moisture was just, you could have knitted probably 50 sweaters with the amount of mycelium.
Oh my God.
On the sideline. And I was like, well, I may have got her up a little too high.
Too high for that. That's a nice environment for that little disease.
Yeah, it was Petri dish central with grow tarps.
So you learn, and you live and learn, and you take it. You had mentioned a couple of these guys, and I threw Tony Leonard's name in there. My impression, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you guys in the industry, especially the stadium managers, are fairly close.
Oh man, it's a really tight knit fraternity.
That's
sure.
Cool. That's very cool.
Nobody, basically when you have an issue, I mean, I called Tony Leonard, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 years ago. They threw a concert in. We had U2 on a Tuesday night, the week of the home.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And so we'd never had a concert that close to a game before.
Yeah.
I knew Tony had dealt with a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. Tony's at the Philadelphia Eagles, for those who haven't listened to the EarthWorks podcast with Tony Leonard yet, but yeah.
Yeah. So I called Tony. I'm like, hey man, I'm in a scenario I've never been in before.
Help me. What do I do with this?
Pick your brain a little bit, like what you think about it. And he's like, what do you got? I said, well, I got a Tuesday night U2 show the week of the home opener. And he goes, holy shit. And I was like,
that made you feel better, didn't it?
That is not the answer I was looking for.
Right. No, wrong answer, Tony. Try again.
So we discussed all the possibilities. I called Terry Porch in Tennessee and talked to him and just said, what do you think? I called 3 or 4 guys and just, kind of picked brains of what they thought. And one of my guys on my crew, he's been here 40 years, not 4. He was on me like crazy. Trav, you got to cut it out. Trav, you got to cut it out before they get here. Trav, you can't wait. Because, in my shoes, you don't really know which way to go. What if we cut it out and they rut the hell out of it?
Yeah. Through
the floor or whatever.
You lose. Yeah.
Or, do you keep the grass in, take it out, and then do it? He's like, I'm telling you, you're going to need that time. Like, you got to cut it out. You got to cut it out. It's going to be way faster to laser grade it than it is to get grass out and laser grade it. Just, you got to take it. I mean, he was on me about five times.
That's a split second decision almost.
Yeah, and finally I was like, okay.
Let's do it.
And Tony, Tony said the same thing. Terry Porch said the same thing. But the NFL guys, we all, it's pretty. That part's really fun of how well we all get along.
Yeah. Does the NFL have agronomy consultants that you have to listen to, or like the USGA kind of scenario? Is there people that you have to be responsible to?
No, I mean, you're not responsible to anyone. I mean, we have Andy McNitt at Penn State as a resource to just kind of bounce things off of, and he's been great to work with. So
yeah, I was a county extension agent with Andy McNitt when he was a rookie county extension.
Yeah,
known Andy since he was a puppy.
Yep,
he's a
good dude.
Yeah, good man. So, but there is no agronomy team that, I mean, he's a consultant, I assume. I mean, he's there for your utilization when you need that kind of body to lean on.
Yeah, we have to, basically there's certain things that they want us to test before every game. So we have to send numbers into the league.
What do you have to test?
We have to test surface hardness.
Okay.
We send in moisture readings, and then post game we send in shear vein numbers.
Really?
Just
what do they do with all that data?
I think it's more of for us. I think really it's used more to help us in the long run. Obviously, we're not. I don't look at those things.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
I know where I want the field to be and how I want it to play. And sometimes those numbers don't really add up, right? If we, if we're shearing at 22 and then we go out the week of a game, let's say we're going to have a night game. I always throw a little bit of sand the week of a night game so that you don't get that slick surface at the top.
Right.
And
firm it up a bit.
The cleat interacts a little bit better because the sand actually opens the canopy a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So your shear numbers are actually going to go down after you top dress.
Do you ever get complaints and bitched at by players like you would on the golf course by members?
Not really.
They don't blame you for when they didn't make the cut or get down the field. I mean, that's not your fault.
No, I haven't really had anything crazy with that. I mean, we try to, one thing that we do is we pay attention to every result of what we do. I'm not a real big keep notes or keep records. It's not really, because it's hard to do in Kansas City.
Yeah.
This July 2nd can be 105.
Yeah.
And next year, July 2nd could be 75.
Yeah.
No, you don't know what you're going to get. So
yeah, and the big battle. I mean, I live in the Mid-Atlantic, and we all think that we have a worse environment than you guys have. But statistically, if you look at it, you actually have a worse environment, but we have a lot more cool season grass than you do. So trying to keep that alive, if you had all our cool season grass from the Mid-Atlantic in your neighborhood, you'd probably think the same thing. But let's talk a little agronomy. We had a nice conversation the other day on the phone, and you've got some pretty unique ideas of how to manage soils. And I fear that maybe I brainwashed you a little bit in Rutgers. I hope that's not necessarily the case, but you kind of learned on your own. But what's your take? I mean, you're kind of a biological soil management guy in the way you attack things.
No, absolutely. I mean, we take soil samples usually twice a year, spring and fall, so we can adjust going into either spring or fall.
Yeah, be ahead of the curve.
Kind of be ahead of the curve, and then we really kind of learned this accidentally. Obviously going through school and having soil science with you, the only class I really enjoyed, by the way.
You didn't have to say that, and I'm not paying you.
No, I mean, listen,
thank you.
I told somebody the other day, I said, Joel Simmons is probably the only teacher I've ever had in my entire life that could actually keep my attention.
That's because I kept throwing things at you to stay awake.
I was a little ADHD-ish, so it was hard to keep my attention. So I actually enjoyed that class. But
hey, you were one of the. I said this the other day. You were one of the few guys that got a perfect score on my midterm. I mean, that's like I went through that after we had that conversation. There might be 4, maybe 5. I couldn't get through them all. There's about 1,000 students, and there wasn't many that got perfect scores. So, hey, you did something well.
The funniest part was how shocked they were whenever you said my name. But soil-wise, so what we do is every other app that we go out with is organic, and every other app we go out with is synthetic, so that we always have a carbon source for the nitrogen and the synthetic.
Meat and potatoes.
Get the
carbon and nitrogen, yeah.
Absolute most that we could get. So it's funny because we really didn't do that much here. You throw a couple organic apps a year and
yeah.
Well, then we had a scenario where we had a concert, we sodded, and we buried the field. I mean, it was buried, and we had about, I don't know, 2 weeks before a game, I buried the field. It's August, so the Bermuda's going to come through.
Yeah.
It wasn't really where I wanted it to be, because I was trying to get an app of Primo on it before the first game. So I was actually working over at baseball, and I told Trevor, I'm like, hey man, I'll be back in an hour. I got to go throw some fert out. And so I came over here and chucked like a half pound of 545 on it, and gave that like 3 days. And then I looked at it, I'm like, still isn't what I want. So I snagged some ammonium nitrate.
Yeah, popped it a little bit.
Chucked that out at like 3/4 of a pound. And it was the craziest. Like I came in, like when that kicked in, there was no sand.
Right.
And I was like, holy, like, I mean, I've seen a lot of things over 28 years of doing this stuff, but I'd never seen that, not like that. And so
you had carbon in there, man. You got the system working.
I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, what in the hell is different? Like, what do we do? And then I put the 2 and 2 together. I just loaded it with carbon and then crushed it. And so then that kind of started the philosophy of every other app just with sand base. It's so hard to keep it anyway. Yeah. And so every other app, we actually go fairway grade. Every other app is organic. Every other app is synthetic. And then we actually go, we mow super tight. So I actually got this from I forgot where I heard this. I don't remember if it was at GCSAA National one year. They were talking about Paul Latshaw always having like the thickest rough of anyone, right? And so the story goes that, he's like, I think it was when he was at Wingfoot, they were like, he's like, I have a $2 million irrigation system. I hardly ever use it. We do a lot of hand watering. He's like, if I'm going to host an open, I mow the rough at like an inch for the entire year before the open.
Yeah.
And, I keep ferting it, keep it tight. I get it as tight as I can. And then boom, right before they show up, I let it go.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that really makes a ton of sense, So we can't really use anything here as the guinea pig. That's the blessing of us going to St. Joe for training camp is
you get to see something else.
Yeah, we have the fields from April all the way through, October, but obviously camp starts in July. But we have about a month to 6 week window where we can really put our heads together and say, let's see what happens if we do this.
Yeah.
So it was like 4 or 5 years ago, we were already scalping. It came out early and we're already scalping in like June. And so we just knocked it down to like a ½ inch and just scalped it, mowed it like 4 directions, scalped the hell out of it. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to bring it up to 9/16 and then just start primoing it. So I'm throwing, 6 ounce an acre of primo every 2 weeks on the dot.
Yeah.
And we kept it at 9/16, and then right before they showed up for camp, we took it straight to 3/4.
Oh, wow.
And so I had sent my 2 guys home because they'd been up there for a couple of days already. So I'm like, hey, go home, see the wife, the kids, just go sleep in your own bed, come up a couple hours before practice tomorrow. And then I'm like, crap. They do the PT test, they do their physical test the day before practice starts. They beat the hell out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're just running stuff. When you got a guy that weighs 330 just tipped into a sideline to run back to the other sideline, one
rock.
line gets absolutely just hammered.
Right.
And so I'm like, shit, I sent the guys home and
I got to do this.
I'm going to be the one trying to clean all this up by myself, So I walk out there and there's not one divot.
It held.
And I was like flabbergasted because I'd never seen it before.
Recovery, baby.
That kind of started the way that we manage everything here. The stadium field is under primo all the way through September, and we just kind of go whatever rates we feel it needs. We'll start at 4 or 5 ounces every 2 weeks and gradually drop that depending on the schedule. Maybe 3, but we're under primo most of the year.
How much nitrogen typically a year do you use on any one field?
I don't know, Joel. I don't keep records.
You don't keep records. You said that. Sorry.
It's one where
doesn't sound like it's a lot.
I go off what I see.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you have to.
I go off what I see. It just depends on. It really depends on the year that we phrase mowed and sprigged and only had 5.5 weeks. We went through a boatload.
Yeah.
We were throwing granular every 3 days, and we were spraying foliar every 3 days.
Yeah. So you got to keep the thing going, obviously, because you got the pressure of that field. You're also using big rolls that Chad's providing you. So you're actually replacing the field head to toe at times, right? Is that still practice?
Yeah, for us, we try to once we get through all these events with the concerts and all,
the grass killing season when that's over.
We'll strip the field out and laser grade it, make sure it's good and firm, and then we'll put out 87,000 square feet of thick cut. Yeah. And then obviously you're trying to get that smoothed out and grown in. But once we sod, we try to make it the entire season without resodding, more as a challenge. It's not like there's some sort of the organization isn't trying to tell me, well, don't do it or whatever. It's more of me. I want to grow it. I want to grow it when they say you can't grow it. I love growing it in December and January.
Really?
It's a challenge. I mean, look, tired by the end of it, right? I get tired of thinking.
I would think,
but I enjoy the challenge of, can we make grass grow in January in Kansas City.
In Kansas City, yeah. You guys have had a pretty good little run there with the Chiefs in the last few years, haven't you? How has that been? That's got to be a lot of fun. I mean, you've been on top of the world with that team. I mean, they're phenomenal and they're fun to watch. You got some quarterback. Some guy that's doing pretty well there. What's his name?
He has a decent arm.
Yeah, decent arm. He can move a little bit. Yeah, he's not bad, I guess.
Yes, he's okay. If you like guys who can throw it 70 yards in the air.
Yeah, on a dime, you know.
Yeah. They've been really fun to watch. You know, the hosting 4 AFC championships in a row has been quite the run of just trying to grow grass.
Yeah, I bet.
There's
a little pressure.
And this year with 3 games in a row in the playoffs was a pretty wild ride. The biggest blessing in that, though, is we had a couple early games in December, and then we had like 2 weeks, and then we had a game, and then we had 2 weeks. So we got a pretty good stretch in there. You know, the biggest issue is light. You know,
that time of year. Yeah. There's
some times that it's more like we have grow lights, but we only have enough to do what's the normal shady area.
Right. The areas you need the most.
Yeah. Field grow lights. We really don't need them. But if you go through a 10-day stretch where it's just cloudy every day, you're like, man, can I just get like 2 days of sun? You know,
just give me some light.
Just give me something, just a little bit.
Please, Lord, anything.
Yeah, the grow lights only do so much, you know.
I read somewhere that everybody in Kansas City basically said the reason they won in 2020 was because of your field. Is that true?
I would have to say that's false.
Okay, that's too bad because it sounded good to me.
I mean, obviously all you want to do is have good footing.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You want a good safe surface with good footing. I don't play football. I don't coach football. You know, we do our part of trying to make sure the field is as good as it can. We paint it, and then, you know, they got to take care of business after that.
Yeah. I mean, you have a phenomenal reputation within the NFL field industry. So, I mean, your fields are always solid as can be. I mean, I love watching you guys in playoff season because I'm sitting there looking at grass, you know, couldn't care less about the players, but hey, look at that grass. That looks, and you know, and it doesn't look like they're pulling a lot of divots up. I mean, it just really seems like you got it dialed in and it's working.
Yeah. We've like I said, we do so much trial and error.
Yeah, good for you.
At some point you're going to find something that works, right? Again, I've made a few decisions that, you know, after that game I was like, oh shit, that was
gotta change that thought. Yeah,
but it's not going to be because we didn't try.
And you're still doing that. I mean, you've been doing this for a bunch of years and you're still learning.
I always want to learn. I get bored fast, man. I get bored fast.
I see that. I saw that in college too, by the way. It's all good. Is Tom Brady allowed in Kansas City? I don't even know. Has he ever come back ever? Am I allowed to bring that name up? I'm sorry if I end on a bad note.
No, hey, look, man, to go from Ric Flair to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? I mean,
exactly. What's it look like this year? What's the Chiefs going to put on the field this year? What do you think?
I'll know more at training camp.
Did you grow up a Chiefs fan?
No, I actually was a Marino fan growing up and loved Dolphins. And then when he retired, you know, the Rams moved into Kansas City. I liked the St. Louis Cardinals when they were there. And then when they moved to Arizona, you know, I really didn't care that much with football. I mean, I liked watching football, but I didn't have a team that I hated to. You know, once I came here and once you experience a game at Arrowhead, I mean, this place is pretty special in the scheme of this. It's a really cool place if you've never been to a game here.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to take you up on that offer because I would love to see a game in that stadium.
Such a cool atmosphere.
I read the other day that in October of I want to say of 13, you guys established a Guinness Book World Record on the loudest stadium in the history of football.
Stadium.
Yeah, and then of course it was broke by December 2nd of that same year in Seattle.
And then we reset it like the next year or something.
Oh, is that right? I'd only seen the pieces of that. Travis, I hate to tell you this, but it's we're way past our deadline, and I know you're a busy man, and I want to get you back to work. But I can't thank you enough for joining me. I can't thank you enough for all your support over the years. I am going to tell everybody that you were one of the few perfect scores in my class, because I think that's an honor you should be wearing proudly.
I appreciate that.
And thank you for coming on with us. And I think this was pretty fascinating, and it went much faster, and we went a little bit over that we usually do. But I love the way you think about going through your processes agronomically, and the way you're learning. So I would say keep it up, and obviously if there's anything we can do to help, I'm always here. So thank you so much for being here, and like I said, being such a good supporter for all these years.
Yeah, man, anytime. I always enjoy it.
Appreciate it. And that is the EarthWorks podcast. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe, because we'll send out a little notification and tell you when there's cool things going on, like when we get Travis Hogan on the podcast. But thank you for being with us, and we'll have somebody here again next week.